I'm up to number 48 in my Best Picture Marathon. Best Picture Marathon theme song. 1975 was another excellent year for cinema. So many great films in both the US and abroad. The Best Picture winner for 1975 was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The film was based on an excellent novel by Ken Kesey and was originally distributed by United Artists. It tells the story of a convicted criminal named R.P. McMurphy who's committed to a mental institution in the early 1960s. The authorities suspect that he's been faking craziness to get out of work detail in prison, so they send him to this mental institution in order to find out if he really is crazy. While there, he befriends many of the other patients, becoming sort of a messianic figure to them, and he comes into conflict with the cold, quietly cruel head of the ward, Nurse Ratched. Shortly after publication, the novel had been adapted as a play starring Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas got the rights to adapt it into a movie and wanted to reprise his role starring as R.P. McMurphy. But development was a long, crazy process. Eventually, Kirk Douglas' son, Michael Douglas, came on as a producer. He was really drawn to the idea of one man against the establishment. He and co-producer Saul Zaentz ended up getting the film made, but by the time the project finally came together, the director and the producers felt that Kirk Douglas was too old to play McMurphy. They subsequently cast Jack Nicholson in the role, and he's amazing. Nurse Ratched is perfectly played by Louise Fletcher, and the supporting cast features notable early appearances by folks like Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, and Brad Dourif. Scatman Crothers is also in the film. He would later re-team with Jack Nicholson for The Shining. I love this movie. I've seen it a number of times over the years, and I just think it's a really brilliant, beautiful movie. It's by turns hilarious, heartbreaking, infuriating, and inspiring. Fantastic cinematography by Haskell Wexler and Bill Butler. Oftentimes, prison and hospital movies tend to look kind of stale visually, but this movie looks great. They actually filmed it on location in a real mental hospital in Oregon. Jack Nicholson and the other cast members spent months researching and shadowing the patients, giving the film an extra layer of authenticity. Director Milos Forman had directed some successful films in what was then Czechoslovakia. He eventually fled to the US to escape censorship, and Cuckoo's Nest appealed to him in part because he saw Nurse Ratched as a representation of the oppressive Communist Party he had escaped. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was only the second movie to ever sweep the top 5 categories in the Oscars. That's picture, director, actor, actress, and screenplay. The only earlier film that had done that was It Happened One Night. As with any adaptation, the movie makes some significant changes from the source material. For example, the book is narrated by the character Chief Bromden. Bromden's a relatively small part in the movie, but he's absolutely crucial to the story. I don't think Will Sampson had acted in anything before this movie, and he's great. Nevertheless, it's an outstanding anti-establishment movie, decrying the more brutal practices of the mental health industry in the early 60s, and making an unlikely hero out of a convicted criminal who comes to represent freedom and the triumph of the human spirit over the oppressions of establishment authority. In some ways, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a perfect representation of 70s cinema. It's anti-authority, the hero is a criminal, the movie has some pretty dark moments and some pretty shocking stuff too, but ultimately it's a surprisingly optimistic movie, something that was starting to come back into fashion in cinema in the mid-70s, as we'll see with our next film, Rocky. See you then.